A quite common problem within the coding space, and I've experienced this myself, is that you run out of motivation. You're learning a hard topic, you struggle, and eventually you're like, screw this, I don't want to do this anymore, it's so hard. And bam, you stop coding, or you're not as good at coding. And that leads to further demotivation until the point where you just quit altogether. And I know this because this was me.
Oh my god! Wow!
I was learning Python in the first 4 months of my programming journey, and as soon as it started to get into the more complex stuff like for loops, if loops, while loops, and like the really hard stuff, I stopped seeing results and I eventually just quit altogether for a couple of months. And once I quit, I started to journal a little bit more. I started to really understand why I kept quitting and kept getting demotivated. There are 3 main things that I learned that I started applying into my coding journey that basically never let me run out of motivation and kept me disciplined when I started to code again. So the first thing you want to do is to set a time and date to code. I can't explain how important this is. Be extremely focused on when and what time you want to code. Ideally a daily habit, like try to code every day because you're going to build momentum. But find that time when you want to code. And when you have that, you have no other choice but to show up. And when you have no other choice but to show up, you simply just go and you don't rely on your motivation to begin with. The next thing that you want to do is to develop the habit of long-term patience and short-term impatience. Understand that learning to code will take time. Learn as much as you can within that small period of time that you are coding. A quite common limiting belief in us coders is that we're going to be the best coder in the world, the next Mark Zuckerberg, the next Steve Wozniak, and it's just wrong. Like, we're likely not going to be that good, and having that limiting belief brings nothing but negatives into our lives because we start to feel like we're not good enough, that because we aren't able to learn a concept that we just suck, which eventually leads to you just quitting and giving up on your goal. Now the final thing to do is, once you have your daily schedule and once you develop this patience and short-term impatience skill, is that when you are coding, do stuff that is just harder than you'd like, but easy enough for you to be able to do. Many coders want to do the hardest things. They want to do machine learning, AI, right when they are learning to code, and they don't know how to code. And eventually what that leads to is them quitting and giving up on their goal because it is very hard. To combat that, set goals that are easy but just hard enough for you to improve. For example, let's say you are learning HTML, right? You know not a lick of HTML. On your coding days, when you set that time to code, learn something within HTML. Maybe make lists, maybe learn how to make an HTML document, and slowly, after every day improving just a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, you will find yourself at a point where you are so good that it truly surprises you. And I'll leave on this note, try not to focus on how much motivation you have, rather focus on building momentum, because momentum stays, motivation is comes and goes. And the best way to build momentum is the things that I taught you in this video. Do it daily, code every day, and set a time to do it, as well as set goals that are just easy enough for you to do, because once you're able and you see yourself improving and actually be able to code stuff, you'll want to come back the next day and do more work, and then you want to come back the next day and do more work. This is not to say that you'll have infinite motivation for the rest of your life, but doing these things will make coding easier and your coding journey infinitely easier because you're not relying on motivation. I hope this brought value to you and your coding journey, and I'll see you in the next video.